Welcome to episode 4 of What the Observer Sees. So my name is Bob and I'm here with Arun.
Hi everyone.
And in this episode, we'll talk about marketing. What are the current trends of today? What are the best practices? And the possibility of gamifying the very act of marketing. So let's kick off the session and let's go to Arun. Arun, so
Sure.
what is marketing to you?
Wow, that's a really general question, but I guess in essence for me, marketing is all about reaching your customer and kind of connecting with the customer base that you have, for you as a company or a service provider to kind of introduce them to your product, your service, whatever you may be offering to the market, right? So marketing is just that channel to be able to reach your customer base, essentially. Yeah.
And there's a pretty good introduction to marketing. And over here, I've checked Forbes, and in their 2023 marketing insights, Forbes has stated, right, that they found marketing trends today are all about managing digital expectations, being the authority in the long run, so on and so forth, being the public having the public perception of AI playing into your marketing as well, having maybe AI could be more accurate, helping to improve trust in digital marketing moving forward. What are your thoughts on that, Arun?
Yeah, I mean, as any kind of field, I think technology and the digital awareness in the marketplace really has elevated every kind of feel to incorporate technology and data, right? So I think as long and then plus the rise of social media has created this whole avenue for marketing to happen, right, through social media. So I think there's going to be there has been a huge shift over the last 10 years or so. I mean, social media is nothing new. And I think marketers have kind of found a very effective channel to be able to reach audiences, right? So to me, it's one of the more effective areas within any business that has adopted digitalization and kind of embraced technology and whatever comes with it, the benefits or kind of disadvantages as well, right? So yeah, that would be my take on that.
Right. And is there a best marketing strategy moving forward, or at least one of the better ones that would rise up from 2023 onwards, in, let's say, 10 years down the road, for example?
I guess traditionally, most businesses were always very focused in terms of building sales pipelines. And I think marketing was really that agent that kind of funneled in leads or kind of opportunities at the top of the pipeline, right? And that worked for many years. I think a lot of salespeople, a lot of marketing people really identify with the sales funnel. But recently, I think HubSpot came up with a new concept. Not recently, I think it's been around for at least about 2.5 to 3 years. And it's really this concept of a flywheel, right? Which is a very different take on marketing and how we engage customers, right? How do we use customer experiences? How do we use the feedback, the experience that they go through, right, to really build momentum and to drive more people into the product or service that you're selling, right? So very different from your static kind of sales funnel and moving into very dynamic, ever-flowing kind of wheel that moves in the direction of the business, right? Brings in more users, which eventually brings in more and more and more, right? So that's I think a major shift in marketing. And I think a lot of companies are now adopting that approach to see how they can really enhance the customer experience to deliver value.
Right. And it's quite interesting that you brought up, the funnel versus the flywheel concept in terms of marketing, because as we all know, funnel versus flywheel is more applicable in the sales and the pipeline in terms of sales, right? So it's very interesting that you brought this up, and just want to pick your thoughts a little bit, right? So how does this play into retention versus looking at new leads acquisition? How does the flywheel model play into this aspect?
Yeah, well, so the flywheel kind of operates like any wheel per se. Like if you look at a wheel, right, it's round and continuously moves, without stopping, right? If there is enough force, it will move continuously, right? So the same can be applied for any product or service. When you're launching a new product, you might have a group of people that are your initial adopters, your early adopters, the ones who buy into the product very early in the cycle. And those people and those customers can really be an advocate for the product or the service. They can go out and spread the word about the experience that they have received by utilizing the product or interacting with the company that sells the product, right? So for any business, the goal is, how can I make the customer experience the best it can be? How can I enable whatever interactions we have with the customers to be as seamless, as interesting as possible, so that the customer then becomes a channel for you to be able to market your product. So they, in a sense, spread the word, kind of bring in more users, and over time, if that experience is maintained, that continues to bring in more and more and more, right? So from a business perspective, I think one of the big goals for any business that wants to effectively use a flywheel is to identify friction points in the entire customer experience, right? So when, for example, if you're trying to bring somebody in on a new platform, you want to onboard a new customer, how do you identify friction points in that onboarding process? How do you remove them systematically over time, right? So from the perspective of the customer, the process becomes easier and easier over time, right? And that kind of elevates the customer experience in totality, and that eventually brings more people onto the platform, and that cycle continues and continues, right? So customers can really be that momentum driver for the business, right? And as a business, business owners, the marketing team, the sales team, kind of interacts with the customer and make sure and kind of ensures that momentum is not dropping, it's actually speeding up, right? And eventually that gets to a point where it brings in a lot of new customers, and that entire flywheel continues spinning, right, in the direction that you need it to, right? So in a sense, that's how it differs from what we used to have, where, if I'm a salesperson or if I'm a marketing person, as a marketing person, I would look at leads at the top of the funnel, kind of reach out to them, try to get them into the funnel, and then I would pass it over to my sales guys, who would then try to convert them, right, into revenue generating clients. Now, I think both teams in the flywheel have to work together continuously so that flywheel continues spinning. So it's slightly different, but I think in the end of the day, the fundamental shift has been to prioritize the customer experience.
Right. And all these, you bring up a very good point in terms of making it seamless, right? So that it continues the cycle. It becomes an advocate for it. And I remember you do have a LinkedIn post on the flywheel model as well, moving forward into businesses of tomorrow, right? Of today and tomorrow. And you utilize all these like social media platforms to sort of broadcast or advocate. To tell people, oh look, this model moving forward, so on and so forth, and it does help to it does play into when you mention the act of making dissemination seamless, making sure that everyone has an easier time to see what you have in stock, right? So one thing I do know, and it also correlates to what I found on a HubSpot article back in November 2022, is that audience attention span these days are very much correlated to a shorter form of media. So you have elements of, let's say, YouTube Shorts, you have TikToks, you have IG Reels. And I know like probably they last up to 90 seconds at most. And I also remember that you told me once about how you since you have YouTube Premium, right, you prefer to shut out YouTube Shorts completely. Because I remember that you spend a lot of time onto the you mentioned it can be quite addictive, but it's quite interesting how this moves forward in terms of marketing of the future, right? Where people these days, they are on their mobile phones a lot, right? Mobile we talk about marketing trends, we talk about mobile optimization. As HubSpot mentioned here, like more than half of the annual traffic online in year 2022 comes from mobile devices, including tablets. So moving forward into 2023 onwards, how would this change the landscape of marketing, and if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think the shorter content, shorter media formats are here to stay. I think just given the digital climate that we are in, a lot of organizations have decided that is a very effective way to reach audiences, right? So I was reading an article a few days back, and I think they were saying that about on an average day, a consumer is bombarded with 10,000 different marketing messages, right? That could be through the ads you see on YouTube as you're browsing, or when you're driving your car, ads that you see on the road or whatever, right? So there's so much information overload. As a consumer today, I need to be able to draw the attention, and anything more than 90 seconds, anything more than 60 seconds is proving to be very tough, right? Unless you are a very big proponent of that content or that media format, you'll be less likely to go and consume it. So I think a lot of people have realized that is a very effective way to reach people, especially on the B2C side, because on the B2C side it's very product driven, versus the B2B, which is very services driven, and you need to be able to communicate the value, the functions, the return on investment. So that becomes a lot harder to articulate in a 90-second video. But if I was planning to sell a pair of shoes, all I need to do is have a really impressive product launch video and to showcase some of the features. So it's a very different dynamic if you look at different industries. But generally, yes, the way that people are consuming content is going towards the shorter form formats. And I don't think that will change anytime soon. I think social media channels will continue to be one of the most effective marketing channels there is available to businesses.
Now that is some pretty interesting insights, and that actually got me thinking about two lines of thought. So let's dive straight into it, and let's go for the first one, right? So
yeah.
With all this talk about digitization, making use of the short form elements of media and assets, right, in terms of marketing. Yeah. So they found that although the usage of augmented reality (AR) or virtual reality (VR) slowed down, as some people plan to stop using these elements in terms of their marketing or product display and whatnot.
Sure.
How do you see? Do you see a rise back in terms of these elements of using virtual reality, augmented reality? As they call it, experiential marketing. Yeah. Would this make a comeback in the years to come, in the 10 years to come, in terms of marketing?
Well, I don't know. I think yes and no. I think a lot of it depends on the rise of metaverse and the traction that is getting on that side of the coin. So I mean, I think there is a lot more acceptance towards trying different approaches. Like even when we talk about the metaverse and how that's going to change our interaction, there are a lot of businesses that are already investing in that to see how they can create digital stores, how the people interact with those digital stores as they move through the metaverse and experience the product in the metaverse. So there are a lot of organizations out there, big ones, that have started to invest a lot of money to see how they can capitalize on some of this new tech that is coming out, right? And I think VR and AR could be a proponent of that or a component. At least I think in the next 1 or 2 years, I don't see it being anywhere close to how the current channels are, like in terms of social media, where you use Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it may be to reach audiences. But I think it's eventually going to move towards the direction as we get better understanding of the metaverse, how we can actually interact with it. And that would be my take. Like I wouldn't be as confident to say that, in a year's time, to experience a Nike shoe, you have to put on a VR goggle. But I would think that maybe in 5 years' time, that could very well be a possibility, right? So definitely there are some new tech that is coming in, gamification as well, how we we gamify the marketing experience as well. So those are some of the options that a lot of businesses are trying to explore. How do we, I think essentially it boils down to the one question, which is how do we engage consumers, right? I think if we just do the box standard billboards on the road, it's not driving the right actions from the customers, right? Like that's what we essentially want. We want the customer, or we want a potential customer, to see the ad and take action, right? Either to visit a physical store where we are selling the product, or to visit our website to explore what we have. But you want the customer to take some kind of action. So I think with content being so diverse and freely available out there, we just need new formats to keep them engaged, keep them interested and wanting to find out more, right? Which is that first step. Yeah.
And it's interesting, in the element of keeping people engaged in the elements of marketing, that also correlates back to the elements of gamification. As we did go through it in episode 1. Feel free to check it out in the playlist below, right? Where we talked about several elements of gamification and how it encourages people to come back, people to stay engaged with what we are trying to gamify. And what we found at this article by the Bazaar Voice, they conducted a research, or I would say a survey, across 10,000 global shoppers here as to why we should gamify our marketing efforts. So they found that 70% of shoppers would actually look for gaming elements to be incorporated into online shopping. Right. They also found that 42% of shoppers want gaming elements incorporated in the shopping when they are going through the in-store itself. I would say 36 to 42% where they will look into gamifying elements. And in fact, a real life example that I could think of is probably Under Armour. So when Steph Curry signed with Under Armour, and now Steph Curry is probably one of the NBA's best shooter of all times, I would say. And they came up with this IQ trivia game where they encourage people who are fans of either Steph Curry or fans of the brand Under Armour itself to basically tap into a very quick trivia game on Steph Curry, if I'm right. And it's based on his time in the NBA playoffs back in 2018, where I believe Steph was pretty much at shooting prowess at his finest and whatnot. And a lot of people downloaded that trivia app, and they actually earned prizes according to however many multiple choice questions that they got correct within the time frame. And it all routes back to Under Armour and how they actually gamify an element of their marketing to route potential customers back into the brand, potential fans back into the brand. So what are your thoughts on that element of gamification and keeping people engaged in that marketing via that method?
No, I mean, gamification is always a very effective tool if you want to drive certain behaviors or certain actions, right? So in the case of the Steph Curry example, Under Armour essentially wanted more exposure, I guess, to their products and services, and they used Steph Curry as that symbol of the brand, right? So they built kind of like a structure behind it where people could interact with questions about Steph. So obviously there were fans of the player, fans of the brand. So everyone kind of participated in it, and there was an element of being able to win something. And so I think that's a very effective tool because you have a very captive audience. You have an audience that is very interested to know about or to explore more about Steph Curry. You have obviously people who like the brand and they like the products. So you have a very effective marketing initiative that can go hand in hand. This kind of reminds me of a Netflix episode that I watched recently, called Pepsi, Where's My Jet? I don't know if anyone has seen it, but effectively what Pepsi and Coca-Cola were doing in the 90s was really engaged in this cola wars, right? Who was going to win the cola war? Was Coke going to win or Pepsi? So there was tons of money that was spent on marketing, right, to reach customers. And one very, very, very effective tool that Pepsi did was to create a catalog of different products that you could win from Pepsi based on the number of points you collected after purchasing a can of Pepsi, essentially. So obviously, the more you purchase, the bigger prizes you could get. And the irony of that story is that they had this ad that kind of ran that said that if you collect something like 7 million points, which was nearly impossible to do, you could win a Harrier jet, a fighter
That's
jet.
a lot of points. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And somebody did win it, and and they went into a really big legal battle because Pepsi didn't think that anyone would ever do it, and they thought it was just a prank, but there was no disclaimer in the ad, and so this person actually took them to court and actually won a Harrier jet.
Oh my
Right.
God.
So so it's a kind of a weird thing, but essentially the gamification element is there, right? You're incentivizing people with products or merchandising, and you're using them to consume your product, which is called which is Pepsi, and to get those points, right? So I recommend that series of 4 episodes. I think it's on Netflix. Go and check it out. That was how gamification was used by Pepsi in the 90s to kind of drive and to try to beat Coca-Cola at their game, try to win market share, right? But it was a very effective marketing initiative. It just kind of went haywire, and there was a lot of legal issues that came out of it. But at a fundamental level, it was a very effective marketing initiative. One of the most successful, I believe, in the 90s, especially in America, and I think it was around the world as well. And I think people still walk around with those Pepsi bags and Pepsi merchandising. I think comes from those early 90s, marketing initiatives that were conducted. Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, it's a very effective tool using gamification to pair it with marketing and to drive consumer behavior.
Yep. And I remember, all these talking about keeping the customers engaged.
Yeah.
I remember Zeus having, and it's probably not
Zeus
just
Coffee,
Zeus.
is it?
Yeah, Zeus Coffee. I
Right.
know that it's not just them nowadays. There are a lot of adopters out there who have
Yeah.
loyalty apps,
Yeah.
and they actually implement the use of social media. And
Right.
they also put a little bit of game here and there to say that, you have your daily check-ins, you can get easy points, and these points you can convert it and probably get a free drink based on the points and whatnot.
Yeah.
I know, when Lazada and Shopee have their sales, oh my goodness, they'll give out non-stop vouchers here, vouchers there. You can spin the wheel, you can get
correct.
you can get all sorts of sales vouchers, and then eventually people just keep going back and what's my spin going to be this round? Is it going to be what? Is it going to be $1? Is it going to be $10 or whatnot? Right. And other than all these loyalty apps and whatnot created by a lot of companies and businesses digitally these days, have you experienced one in a physical sense where they actually gamify a purchase for you, and it keeps you going back for more?
So recently, coming back to that coffee example, recently I was at this venue, and there was this small coffee machine that was set up, and they essentially gamified the process where they, whenever you ordered a cappuccino from the machine or a flat white or whatever it may be, on the cover, which was a plastic cover that kind of sat on top of the cup, there was a potential that you could get like a QR code. And whenever you got the QR code, that means you were entitled to a free drink, right? So it was kind of randomized in a way. You didn't know when you were actually going to get the QR code. But, I was at that venue for about 2 days, and I had 3 or 4 coffees over the 2 days. And I was really interested to win that QR code, right? And towards the end of the second day, I managed to win 2 in a row. So it's definitely purely randomized. But I thought it was a very effective way to get me to come back and try to purchase another coffee, and with hopes that I would win a free one, right? And I guess it's similar to that Charlie in the Chocolate Factory where you're looking for that golden ticket, right? Right, where you want to get that chocolate that is wrapped in the golden ticket, right? And it's a very effective tool. And, recently I was talking to somebody who actually mentioned that, randomized gifts are a lot better than standard gifts. So if I tell you I'm going to award you after every 10 drinks, it's very structured, right? You get 10 drinks and then you get a free coffee or whatever, right? That's what most people do. But you could actually randomize it. So you could tell them that, we don't have a set order, but at a random point in your customer purchasing journey, you might be entitled to free drinks. So as a consumer, people tend to gamble and people tend to risk, and they want to take that lucky shot, right? So it's a very effective way, and data actually shows that people are a lot more. They purchase more, or they kind of practice whatever you're trying to push, like whatever behavior you're trying to push, more effectively if they don't know the order of when the gift is received. It's more randomized, right? So gamification can be used in that element too, where we can inject some kind of randomness, so it becomes like a lottery. Like, I don't know whether I'm going to win next week, but I keep on trying, right? That's the whole allure of going to the 4D shop, or like the lottery shop or whatever you call it, to try to get a number with hopes that tomorrow you're going to hit like a jackpot, right? But if you just bring it down to the most basic level for a coffee, for a cup of coffee, it can be equally as attractive for somebody to really try their luck and try to win something as a consequence, right? Yeah. So yeah,
that's interesting. Remember, guys, punt legally, don't punt illegally, right? Go and gamble for coffee, not gamble for other things. That's a healthy way to go about it, right? And this also reminds me of a game that I really, really like, actually. And this game is called Food Chain Magnet. And the whole premise of the game is that you are running basically a business, but they put a lot of emphasis on making sure that you are putting a healthy amount of attention to your marketing. So the whole stage of the game is that we are all fast food chain companies. So it could be like McDonald's, I could be KFC, someone else could be Burger King, for example, right? I mean, the names are not set in stone, but we can always decide on that later. And that we're trying to basically market our goods, or what we can sell, into a set populace that is the bot. So this bot can be adjusted from time to time, but when we set the stage, then that is like the preset neighborhood that we are playing in. Right? Okay. So imagine like if you're playing in Damansara, for example, then we just play in Damansara. And why this game sort of resonates with our topic today is that because without marketing, we can't tie it back to the sales. Because without the exposure, right, then customers won't have, in this game at least, the customers won't have the demand for what your fast food chain is selling. So for example, if you're selling burgers, but there is no marketing on burgers, then there is strictly no demand on the game for burgers. So it really is interesting in how there are several aspects we can tie it back to marketing, whether we gamify or not, whether we talk about retaining attention, whether we talk about social proof in the sense of the flywheel method that you mentioned. And there's also a quote by this head of English SEO at HubSpot that says that businesses should look at a topic and say, what questions could users ask about this? And then they should plan their topics accordingly and look for opportunities to insert questions as headers. So it sounds like this ties back into curating content and structuring your marketing to adjust to what the current populace is currently looking at. Yeah. In terms of what do I really need at this point in time? How do I address this solution? How do I have a gap? How do I plug this? And so on and so forth. So, what are your thoughts on this quote? It seems like it could play into the aspects of marketing as well.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, obviously, you want to be able to reach your audience, and to reach your audience, you need to know what they are interested and concerned about, right? So I think that's why you see that over the generations, the way marketing has evolved is through the evolution of the times that we are in, right? Like the Pepsi marketing campaign, it was very driven by the point that during those days, a lot of people were consuming content through the television. There was no other really widespread kind of content channel, right? So the way that the content was developed was to be viewed through a television lens, right? And over time, that has kind of evolved. Now we have moved into mobile. We have, social media. We have WhatsApp. Even can be a marketing channel for a lot of people. So the way we need to address our marketing strategies, our marketing campaigns, has to be tailored to our audience, right? And as audiences evolve over time, we have to evolve our strategies too. And that's why you start to see, notions of VR, AR, metaverse, NFTs, all those kind of different concepts are playing into the trends that are going through the motion at this moment of time, right? In 10 years' time, we won't know where, what transpires, but I think marketing will have to adapt and kind of evolve to what customers really want and what they are looking for, right? So I completely agree. I think that HubSpot, in a sense, has become a thought leader in the marketing space. I think a lot of that is driven by the amount of users they have, the amount of data. And I think it's a very effective code where we always develop to the customer in mind, to the audience in mind, right? Otherwise you're just throwing a lot of money and not getting a lot of result, right? So that would be my take on it. On the board game that you mentioned, the food chain magnet, right? I would say the only recently I read another article that the only fast food chain that had never done marketing is Five Guys, right? Right. So Five Guys has never marketed their products, right? Their products are purely marketed through word of mouth, right? So the marketing is the burger, right? How fantastic the burger experience is, right? And they have never done any form of marketing, any paid marketing, any kind of social media marketing, none, zero, right? And they kind of bucked the trend in terms of what B2C kind of businesses have done, but they are relying solely on the strength of their product being the most effective way to reach consumers and customers, right? And so far, it's been very successful, I have to say. So I think there are exceptions, but very few, right? You need to be able to really differentiate the product. And even if you're Apple, you do tons of marketing. So Five Guys have managed to figure out a way to connect with customers through the taste of the burger rather than whatever you see on any kind of marketing channel. So it's a unique case study, but interesting as well.
Well, I never knew that Five Guys never had a marketing campaign going on. It was just pure social proof. It ties back to the flywheel method that you mentioned, right? The flywheel concept. Yeah.
Yeah. So correct. You're right.
Yeah. So just as we come to a conclusion on this marketing madness that we have going on in the era of digitization, right? So and also on thinking back on the flywheel concept that we have in terms of making sure that it's sustainable instead of trying to funnel everything back down to the customers out there. What would be your one message or one statement or advice for businesses in the year 2023? Could be old, could be new businesses, could be startups, could be ones that have been existing for a long time, right? So how could they take advantage of this era and move forward in their elements of marketing? Which areas could they potentially focus on so that it helps them to increase their exposure and ultimately, more importantly, it's sustainable for them?
I think the message that I would have is to focus on customer experiences. I think in today's world, we have a lot of products, a lot of competition out there. It's very easy for a customer to jump ship if they don't like your product or service, right? So from a business perspective, I think marketing, sales, the CEO, the operations team, everyone has to be really focused in terms of delivering the best customer experience out there, right? And if you can do that, and if you can continuously improve on that, over time, you have a very effective customer proposition, right? A unique customer proposition that you can deliver, right? And with the abundance of choice today, I think customers really value that experience over anything else, right? There are data that suggests that people will pay more to have a better experience, So that means price is not the final determinant, right? It's really, the experience that they receive by interacting with the product and and through the company as well. So I think whatever business you're in, whether you're a startup, you're a big organization, you need to look at the customer experience. You really need to look at every touch point that you're having, how you can make it even better, how you can remove friction from the process, how do you enable your team to be super aligned to what the customer expectations are. And I think if you can do that, you have a very effective marketing strategy, a very effective marketing channel, similar to what Five Guys has done, right? So that we don't have to spend tons of money blasting information into the world. We can use and get the people who interact with the product to really become advocates and to spin that flywheel on our behalf as well. So I would say that would be my only piece of advice, focus on that customer experience. It's a lot more important than we think, right? So that would be it.